drugs amount to cruel or unusual punishment because the same drugs are used by other states. The Utah Department of Corrections opted for this specific drug after Honey's defense sued over the previous plan to use what they had called an experimental 3-drug cocktail. Honey is scheduled to be put to death early in the morning on August 8th. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. By a vote of 91-3, the U.S. Senate resoundingly passed a package of internet safety bills today aimed at keeping kids safe online.
On this vote, the ayes are 91, the nays are 3, and the motion is agreed to.
Senators Mike Lee of Utah, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Ron Wyden of Oregon voted against the package, citing concerns about freedom of speech. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 109 points on the day, while the NASDAQ is down 231. And our KSL weather. We've got smoke from wildfires and hotter weather on the way. That's next. KSL News Time 101.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention, like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself, or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Don't let spring allergies make you miserable. Try the quick, drug-free solution trusted by over 4 million people. Navage. Only Navage uses suction to flush out your sinuses using refreshing saline, helping you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier. And here's even better news. Navage is now available at your local Sam's Club in a great new value pack. It's everything you need to start breathing better fast. Check out Navage at your local Sam's Club today. Navage. N-A-V-A-G-E. Breathe easy.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
Do you have an IRA or 401k? It's natural to think of this as being your money, right? But remember, you still have to pay taxes when you withdraw this money in retirement. And you could be paying a lot more in taxes on these accounts than you know. A lot more. Learn the strategies that can help you reduce or eliminate your taxes in retirement. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and Hale Center Theater as the movie show broadcasts live at the theater beginning at 10 a.m., 9900 South Monroe Street in Sandy. Save money on season tickets. 2025 season tickets to Hale Center Theater go on sale to the general public Wednesday, August 1st. The 2025 season includes Little Women, the Broadway musical, DreamWorks, The Prince of Egypt, Finding Neverland, 12 Angry Men, Footloose, the musical comedy Murders of 1940, Sister Act, and one musical to be announced August 1st. Not included in the season ticket will be a special engagement by Gentry, the Gentleman's Trio, and Hale Center Theater's 40th production of A Christmas Carol. You can reserve your 2025 season tickets by going to hct.org or call 801-984-9000.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We're in the final cleanup stages of this vehicle fire northbound I-15 approaching 4500 south in Murray. All lanes of traffic are now open. Delays back to 7200 south. This is the place, Heritage Park, the place to learn, explore, and enjoy Utah history. Perfect for service projects, team building, birthdays, weddings, reunions, and more. Plan today at thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center. Center.
Our KSL weather, more wildfire smoke moving in today, and that affects our air quality. Highs will be in the mid-90s today and tomorrow. It gets back into the triple digits for the weekend. Right now, 91 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The headline on the presidential front is the vice president has to pick a vice president to be a running mate. Historically, vice presidents have never made a difference in the election, and often the role is seen as a bit of a nothing burger of a job, prone to a lot of criticism, a lot of cynicism, and maybe even just a little bit of perks that go along with that. But the no perks, no impact is where we are in terms of the vice president. But is it time to rethink what we think we know about the vice president's role? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as the 2024 presidential election cycle continues to heat up, and as we march our way towards the Democratic National Convention coming up in just a couple of weeks, Vice President Kamala Harris finds herself in the pivotal position, having to shape the Democratic ticket and choosing the role that she's currently in, the role of the vice president. We're going to break this down just a little bit in terms of what's under the headline, what the role really is. As I said, historically, this has not been a position. There's always a lot of hype and a lot of speculation about who the vice presidential nominees will be. Historically, there's been almost no noticeable impact in terms of electoral results. You can't really point to a situation where the vice president made the difference in terms of the election itself. Now, some vice presidents became more consequential because of various things that took place, whether that was the passing away of a president, the assassination of a president, or a president just passed away from illness or old age. Those are big changes. But for the most part, we tend to kind of poke a little bit at the vice president's role. It's often been described as showing up for funerals and things that the president doesn't want to go to. But I want to go back at that just a little bit, because I actually think the vice president's role this year could be consequential in some interesting ways. And I want to talk about some ways that it could be consequential moving forward if the person who takes the role actually does the job as it's outlined in the Constitution. So let's start with where we are in terms of what it means to be the vice president of the United States and what it will actually do. Of course, there was a lot of speculation and a lot of hype around the former president's choice of J.D. Vance to be his vice president. I think there's been a little bit of buyer's remorse on the Republican side, wondering what did this selection of J.D. Vance really amount to? It didn't bring in any new voters, any fringe voters, or middle-of-the-road voters, or undecided voters. I think those who like J.D. Vance are the same ones who like the former president. Was not a big electoral swing. He is from Ohio. That has traditionally been a swing state, but over the last several cycles has been pretty red, pretty reliably red for the Republicans. So I think on the vice presidential choice on the Republican side, don't think a lot of impact. I think the former president kind of fell in love with the idea of J.D. Vance as opposed to the actual J.D. Vance. And we'll break that down at another time on another day. Now, Vice President Harris is going to choose a vice president. So she knows the role. She knows the drill. She gets the gig. So where will she lean? I think she has an opportunity to select a vice president that could potentially move the needle. And of all those that have been floated as potential vice presidential choices for Kamala Harris, I think the two that are most intriguing as far as electoral difference makers, the top of that list has to be Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, because it's Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes on the line. That's a big number. Pennsylvania is a swing state, and it is part of the, quote, blue wall that Democrats rely on. It was the key to President Biden's victory in 2020, and they see that as an important path back. It was also the path for then President Donald Trump, that he was able to go through those states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and sweep that. So Josh Shapiro has a lot of upside when it comes to that. He's a very popular governor in Pennsylvania. He's very dynamic on the stump. He's kind of a Barack Obama style, kind of get people rocking and swaying and nodding along to what he has to say. So he's very appealing from that perspective. Also important, in 2020, he actually did better in Pennsylvania than Joe Biden did at the top of the ticket by a long shot. He did very well. So I think he has to have the inside track in terms of electoral difference making. Now, the question will be, is there a good fit in terms of the dynamics and the personality between Vice President Harris and Governor Shapiro? The other one that's been getting most of the attention, of course, is Mark Kelly out here in the West from Arizona. He also polled ahead of President Biden by about 5 points. So an important swing state, once again, Arizona, part of that Sun Belt swing that someone's going to have to run the table on in order to win the election. Mark Kelly, I don't think, has the upsides of Josh Shapiro in terms of likability, relatability, and dynamics on the stump. So if the vice president goes towards a Mark Kelly, then she's really looking for a governing partner, someone who will just do the practical, tactical stuff. Also, he's in the Senate. And that leads me to where I want to round out this segment, and that is the role of the vice president. The role of the vice president is not to go to funerals. It is not to just show up at ribbon cuttings. It is not to be the attack dog for the president. The job of the vice president is to preside over the Senate. Now, we haven't had a vice president do that for over 100 years because vice presidents decided that's a hard job. And so they have abdicated that role and that responsibility to the majority leader. That is not the way it is designed. The majority leader and the minority leader are simply political apparatus pieces to get the committees to work together, to try to connect people to do bipartisan bills or to solve problems and get in a room and hash some things out. But the person who's supposed to be presiding over the Senate, which means deciding what gets called up, what gets debated, what gets voted on and when, is the role of the vice president. And the fact that we just abdicate this to whoever is the head of whichever side of the political aisle is a huge miss. And if ever a vice president wanted to really have an impact in a role that is often ridiculed for being a no-impact, nothing-burger kind of job, go do the job. The job's to preside over the Senate. And I tell you, if the vice president showed up every morning and was sitting in the chair, the business of the United States Senate would be very, very different. And so it is time to think again about what we think we know when it comes to the vice president's role. I think what Vice President Kamala Harris chooses as her running mate will be indicative, whether she feels she needs the electoral support from a place like Pennsylvania and a popular governor in Josh Shapiro, or whether she's looking for a governing partner in someone who, if she's confident she can win, then she goes with someone like a Senator Kelly. And interesting to have someone who's currently in the Senate called to preside over the Senate. Could be a very interesting conversation there. All right, important things, important decisions. We expect that the vice president will choose her running mate as vice president over the next several days. My guess is it'll happen over the course of the weekend and set up a virtual roll call from the Democrats as they try to lock in their nominee before ballots start being printed in places like Ohio. But the big question is, what is the role? And will anybody be willing to actually do the role? Because that's where I think the actual impact could be. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Don't let this happen to you.
The place not to be is I-15.
Too late for that. I am stuck in this mess now.
Before you hit the road, check the road.
Ricky, it's been kind of a nightmare this afternoon.
It's been awful. Stop and go.
Okay, yeah. I'll just pull off and get a hotel for the night.
Own the road, or it will own you. Grasshopper. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, every morning and afternoon on KSL News Radio.
You have heard us both talk about how much we love our home equity lines of credit, and we want you to know that Utah Community Credit Union makes it easy to access the equity in your home, and they all come with rate inflation protection.
What did I do before I had a HELOC? Honestly, I think I used to stress about a lot of I'd stress about emergencies. Where am I going to come up with this money? I'd stress about doing something to improve the house. I'd stress about high interest loans on my credit cards. I stress about none of that because I have access to this money through UCCU.
Yeah, and of course you can use it in a case of an emergency, but if you want to finish your basement or your yard, think about it. You're adding value to your home while you're using the equity that's already there.
Every UCCU home equity line of credit comes with what you said that's so important, Tim, UCCU's rate inflation protection.
And by the way, if you already have a home equity with another financial institution, no problem. Just refinance with UCCU and save.
Utah Community Credit Union, UCCU. You're going to love where you bank.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why most of our over 18,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with the needs analysis, where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in one day. We also have flexible, no money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
High five! Up top! Heck yeah!
Dave's company just got the first ever 5-year price lock guarantee from Comcast Business.
Yeah, 5 years!
It's 5 years of gig speed internet.
High five for gig speed.
5 years of advanced security.
Security win.
And 5 years of a great rate that won't change.
Our rate ain't changing.
All from the company with 99.9% network reliability.
There it is.
He hasn't given this many high fives since Deborah brought in her famous banana bread.
Woohoo!
Now he's got savings.
I'm so excited.
Yep. Dave's feeling it, but it's only for a limited time, so don't wait. Switch today and ask how to get the first ever 5-year price lock guarantee from Comcast Business. Powering 5 years of savings, powering possibilities. Comcast Business.
And it's hurting, but I am not stopping.
Woo! Ends 8/21/24. Guaranteed rate applies to monthly service charge for new customers on qualifying internet bundle, excluding taxes and fees. Other restrictions apply.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the things I love about radio is that we are all hearing it at the same time. One of the differences between that and just scrolling on your phone is that I don't know when that story was posted. Maybe an hour ago, maybe 3 days ago.
To your point about who wrote it, where did it come from, and is it dated information, our hope every day is that we can provide a more broad spectrum of information on a single topic that you can then take and make decisions on your own.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a judge has rejected arguments from Tabor Honey's attorneys challenging the state's plan for his execution next week. Second, Utah Senator Mike Lee voted against a package of bills intended to keep kids safe online. And third, county clerks in Utah's 2nd Congressional District are busy recounting the ballots in the Republican primary. 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And, of course, as we continue to march our way towards the first Tuesday of November, the vast majority of the attention has been on the Republicans and the Democrats and back and forth. And, as always, we have to make sure we're stepping back and looking beyond those headlines and the fake fight and the false choice. That doesn't have to be either or. We've often criticized not the duopoly, but the two-headed monopoly that has been part of our politics, and it is how you actually get over $35 trillion in debt. And so we wanted to look at some of the other candidates and what is going on, what their agenda would look like, because you do have a choice. We all have a choice. The Libertarian Party is running a candidate, Chase Oliver, and we wanted to lean in a little bit and get a sense of his vision for the country, why he's in this race, and what government would look like if he were to win. And Chase joins us on the line, and welcome to the program.
And thank you for having me. I look forward to speaking with you and to your listeners.
Well, fantastic. Well, let's get into the kind of the genesis of all of this for you. What was it that was the trigger point to say, you know what, I've got to stand up, speak out, and provide that choice?
Well, I wanted to run for president because I am sick and tired of seeing voters feeling like they're dissatisfied with the two top choices that they have. And as a millennial, somebody who's under the age of 40, I think it's really important for our generation really to rise up and kind of speak out because much of the same leadership that's in charge of Washington, D.C. today are people who were in charge of Washington, D.C. 20 years ago when I was in high school. And I think it's really important for our generation and certainly for Gen Z to have their voices be heard and really to speak out in favor of new solutions and not being stuck in this either or Coke or Pepsi kind of election scenario. And so, I felt like I needed to get out there and speak for my generation and speak for the ideas of liberty. And I've been blessed to do that so far.
Fantastic. And I know one of those big issues and defining principles for you does deal around the size and cost of government and what government is and isn't doing. Give us a breakdown in terms of how you would go about, obviously, the debt, which is going to be all kinds of issues, including national security. Give us your take.
Well, I think the first step that we need to address the economy is actually balancing our budget, getting ourselves to where our government is spending less than it is taking in each year. It's a goal that some people might say sounds radical, but we actually had balanced budgets the last 2 years of the Clinton administration. It just requires us to cut a lot of the excess and the fat off of government, and really much of what government does today could be better facilitated either being done by a state or a local government, or in many cases just being out of the realm of government altogether and being left to the private market to handle these kinds of things. And so my first policy, if I was elected president, would be to tell the Congress that if you don't submit to me a balanced budget, I will submit back to you a vetoed budget.
I love the sound of that because we keep saying on this show that the problem in terms of the spending is not conflict, it's collusion. And that's how that all happens. And so looking at it, and I want you to unpack for us a little bit because you referenced two important things there, I think, that everyone should be thinking about. And that is, one, the federalism component, what can be done at the state level, and then also what can be done in the private sector and be done better. Unpack that for us.
Well, at the end of the day, libertarians believe in the most local government possible, which in most cases is actually your own self-governance, governing your own behavior, what you do, so long as you're not harming people with force, fraud, coercion, theft, or violence, things like this. You should really be left to your own devices to govern yourself. But when you look at the Constitution, there's a clear delineation for what is the federal government, the responsibility of the federal government, and all things should be left back to the states, local governments, or to the people, as the Constitution prescribes. And so much of what we do, so much of the reason we have these deficits is because the federal government routinely does so many things outside of the auspices of what the Constitution really should be allowing them to. And this is something we should be sounding the alarm. Like I said, I'm a younger candidate. We don't need to keep kicking the can down the road. And that's what we have when we have 70 and 80-year-olds running. They're looking at the next 2 years, the next 4 years. I'm 40. I'm looking at the next 40 years. And I want to make sure that we're putting our economy back on track and the long view. And that involves putting the government back in its place and getting it cut down to size.
Absolutely. Such an important part of that process, especially for the younger voters, because you are going to be the ones that carry this for the long haul. and it will impact those younger voters and their children in significant ways. Give us a sense of some of the other issues or areas that are part of your platform that people might not be aware of, that might be a little under the radar.
Yeah, I think some of the other areas that are really like, the voters are looking for solutions for things like the immigration crisis at our southern border. My policy is to create a 21st century Ellis Island so we can quickly process workers who want to come here and allow them to work, and then also focus our law enforcement on the people who aren't coming here to work, who are coming here to exploit people through human trafficking or other such things. I think another big issue is clearly criminal justice reform, as we've seen with the shooting of Stanya Massey that has just recently happened. People do want to see more accountability from their law enforcement. It doesn't mean you have to hate police, but it does mean that you want to, see some level of accountability when things like that happen. And certainly what we see overseas going on in the war in Gaza and the war in Ukraine, people want to see, policy coming forward there. And our policy in the Libertarian Party is to disengage ourselves militarily and to re-engage ourselves diplomatically with the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think that diplomatic component is such an important balance to that. Give us a little perception. Again, we hear a lot from the two major candidates in the two major parties that, voting for it's an either or, it's a binary choice. Anything else is a spoiler or throwing away your vote, which we always pointed out on this show is the biggest myth, fallacy, and lie that leaders in government often give us is that, yeah, you can vote for anyone else, but if you don't vote for me, you'll lose power, you'll lose influence. Make the case for us as to why your choice, casting a vote for you, is the best way for someone to exercise that most important right.
Well, I'll first say I argue that I can't spoil something that's already completely spoiled rotten, and that's the two-party system, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you just look at approval ratings, Congress has an approval rating of under 20%, but a re-election rate of over 90%. That is signifying a broken system. And the best way to signify that you want to change that system is to vote outside of it. Because when you give the Democrats or Republicans your vote, you're tacitly signing off on this binary two-party choice that we've been given, this hyperpolarization, this hyperpartisanship, this either you're with us or against us mentality. When you vote outside of that, it tells people that you want to see more representation on your ballot. You want to see better ways to vote, things like ranked choice voting. And the only way to get those things, I'm a libertarian who's running for president. I can't give that to you. But the people who are in your state house, they certainly can, but you have to signify that you want more choices and more voices on your ballot. And the only way to do that is to not give your vote away to a broken two-party system that is continuing to give you less and less quality of candidates, more and more debts and deficits, more and more war around the world, and more hyper-partisanship in our politics. That's poison to this country, and we need to fix it. And that involves us voting outside the two-party system. I hope voters are brave enough to dare to vote differently.
Yeah, it is a we the people question, to be sure. And Chase Oliver, American political activist, nominee for the Libertarian Party for president here in 2024. Chase, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back as we roll into the fall. I think this is a crucial part of the question. You're raising all the critical questions we have to get to, and there's only one way to get to the answers, and that's to keep asking these kinds of questions. Chase, thanks so much for joining us today. Good luck on the trail.
Hey, thank you so much. Peace, love, and liberty to you and your audience.
All right, that's Chase Oliver. He is the Libertarian Party nominee for president of the United States here in 2024. He's asking a lot of the crucial questions that often the Democrats and the Republicans are avoiding, or just saying it's too complicated or we're too divided to solve this or to deal with that. I think as we start to look differently, as we start to question differently, there are other options. And there are options that will lead us to a better place. And so if we want different, you have to vote different. And to vote different, you got to do the homework, and you got to check it out. So Chase Oliver, you can check him out as the Libertarian Party candidate for president. And we'll continue. We've been talking to everyone who's thrown their hat in the ring, and we'll continue to do that here on Inside Sources as we march our way towards the first Tuesday of November, where you will get to exercise your most important right. How you use it matters. And being prepared to use it makes a difference. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. More Inside Sources coming up next. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news from Beirut, Lebanon. The Israeli military says it's attacked targets in Beirut. It says it was targeting the militant commander who was allegedly behind a rocket strike that killed 12 children on a soccer field in the Golan Heights last weekend. ABC News confirming the target was Fuad Shukar, the senior military advisor, also wanted by the United States for allegedly playing a central role in the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut in 1983. A judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed by the attorneys for Taborn Honey in regard to the drugs that will be used in his execution next week. The judge ruled that Honey's attorneys were not able to prove those drugs amounted to cruel or unusual punishment because the same drugs are used by other states. Honey is scheduled to be put to death on August 8th. Our top national story this hour: Taylor Swift expressing her shock and sympathy to the victims of a stabbing attack near Liverpool yesterday. More from ABC's Tom Rivers in London.
Taylor Swift on Instagram says she's in complete shock and is still taking in the horror of the event. She adds they were just little kids at a dance class. Tom Rivers, ABC News, London.
Your money at this moment: the Dow Jones average up on the day 133 points, while the NASDAQ right now down 234. In our KSL weather, we've got smoke still drifting over the state from wildfires. That's next. KSL News Time 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. There's something about us guys. We just somehow think that we are the masters of the grill. We all think that we are going to create the perfect steak for everybody in the family. And the fact is, I don't know about you, but I generally fall short. Why not just go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse for the very best steak you have ever had? And it will be perfect for every single person in the family. You don't need to worry about, well, let's see, that one's very rare. Mine is medium. Hers is going to be well done. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse can take care of it. Plus, it's too hot to be out there grilling yourself. Let Ruth's Chris do it. Those side dishes, the entrees are incredible. The service amazing. There's no cleanup to worry about. All you have to do is make your reservation at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. There's one in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. July's the perfect time to go to 275 Southwest Temple. And of course, there's Hotel Park City, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We can get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we can take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $79.99. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
At Lowe's, save big every day. Right now, get a free pneumatic nailer when you buy a pallet of Metabo HPT nails. And there's more. Save 10% on select shingles when you buy in bulk. Visit us in-store or online for low prices on the materials you need. Because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details.
Gear up for the hunting season with the Shields Hunting Sale event starting now through August 4th. Now's the time to save up to 40% on your favorite archery gear, camo from First Light, optics from Vortex and Loophole, and so much more. Visit Shields in-store and talk with an expert to get everything you need to tag out this season. Or shop our full selection online at shields.com. Get prepared and save now through August 4th at Shields or shields.com.
Hey, Utah! When it comes to guiding the growth of our state, you buzzed in with your comments, and we listened to what you had to say. Your feedback on the future of Utah's housing, water, transportation, and open space will continue to help our leaders make important policy decisions, preserving and improving our high quality of life in meaningful ways for years to come. So, thanks for speaking up. Learn more about our state's future at guidingourgrowth.utah.gov.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We've had a new accident in Utah County, northbound I-15, about 800 to 1600 North Orem. 2 left lanes of traffic are blocked. A lot of traffic getting by pretty easily, but it is causing some slowing in that immediate area. Hey, Utah, summer has come alive, all better in a new vehicle from Murdoch Hyundai. Lease a Tucson SEL for $377 per month or 1.99% for 5 years. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
More wildfire smoke moving in today, and that affects our air quality. Highs will be back in the mid-90s today and tomorrow. Then we get back into the triple digits for the weekend. Right now, 91 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomitz from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Knox Thames served in a special envoy as a special envoy to the State Department during the Obama and the Trump administrations, focusing on the challenge of religious persecution in China and in other countries around the world and what the United States could do in relationship to that. His new book, Ending Persecution, Charting the Path to Global Religious Freedom, will actually come out September 1st, so get that marked on your calendar. That's going to be a great read. And Knox joins us from Washington, D.C. today. And Knox, welcome to the program.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Powerful piece written in the Dispatch, and people can check that out at thedispatch.com, talking about fighting China with faith. Give us the essence of that.
Well, we're in this global competition with the Chinese Communist Party vying for ways to influence nations. The U.S. approach is centered around our values of human rights and democracy. China has a very different approach, an atheistic communist regime. And we've seen the Chinese try to leverage their dollar diplomacy to win over the elites of different countries. But what I wrote about for the Dispatch in this Sunday essay was, while the United States can certainly compete that way, and we should, but making positive investments in different societies to help their people, because we're such a religious nation, and because so many nations of the world that are being sought for, their influence is being curried for, are deeply religious places, we have an advantage that the Chinese cannot compete with, because we value religious freedom, because we defend religious minorities, both at home and abroad. This is something that can connect with billions of people in ways that the Chinese government cannot touch. In fact, they're antagonistic towards.
Yeah.
And we need to be thinking about how to leverage this in a way to advance these values.
Yeah, it's so interesting. China really has had this belts and roads and a way to interact and get people on board or to cripple their own economies with debt. And so walk us through what this looks like, because I really believe the biggest threat to a dictator is faith and entrepreneurship. I think those two elements are what they actually fear more than they fear military might.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, the Chinese have been very savvy in how they've lifted their country up from a third world to first world status, but they've also been very astute observers, and they all remember the power of Pope John Paul II during the Cold War and how faith was the beginning of the first brick that came out of the Iron Curtain that led to its downfall. And so they've been crushing different religious groups in China, independent Christians, Tibetan Buddhists, and both the Obama and the Trump administrations have said that they're committing a genocide against Uyghur Muslims because they're afraid of anything that guides people to a higher power beyond the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
But in this, they've developed something called the Belt and Road Initiative, which is a series of loans that seem really good up front so that poor countries can get the interstate they've wanted or the train line, but they're crushing interest rates that come soon thereafter. And it's a way to kind of lure unsuspecting or purposely ignorant leaders into these deals for a quick payout, and then have long-term domination over other countries' foreign policy and domestic policies. We don't compete like that. We invest in good governance, but we don't have the Belt and Road. We do have the Bible Belt. And there is a band of countries around the world, which I call the Bible, Quran, and Gita Belt, where there's these people of deep faith. And that's an opportunity for us to connect with people in a different way, to compete on a different plane, a spiritual plane. And it's something that we're starting to realize, but we've got a lot more work to do to come up with a real strategy of engagement to round out our competition against the Chinese.
Yeah, I think that faith belt could be such a fascinating thing to really leverage and to show just the power of those kinds of principles and ideals and beliefs are the transforming things. I often say that faith in the future of the world begins with faith in the future of the world, starting with religious faith and freedom of religion. So talk to us a little bit about that developing strategy, because we know hope is important, especially in faith, but hope is not a strategy. So how do we get a strategy around faith as it relates to China?
Well, I think we've got all the pieces there. We've just got to put them together in a plan and apply it across administrations. For 25 years, we've had a unique part of our foreign policy is the protection and promotion of religious freedom abroad. I was a part of that for 20 years, working in different diplomatic roles. And I was very proud to, as an American representing our country, to carry these values forward. And it wins hearts and minds. I mean, I'll never forget being in Karachi, Pakistan, lecturing to a group of students at their Islamic college. And I got a standing ovation when I told them about how we protect the right of Muslim girls here in America to wear the headscarf, and we defend persecuted Muslims abroad. Like, they just didn't know. So part of it's just telling our good message about what we do, and also being honest about the challenges. Like, we're not perfect, but we strive towards perfection. Secondly, it's also how do we educate our diplomats, our service members, our development workers to understand the importance of engaging religious actors, religious communities in their activities, be it diplomatic, developmental, or just security related. The First Amendment doesn't prohibit us talking with religious communities or forming partnerships. It prohibits favoritism, but we should be seeing them as the important members of these local societies that they are, and not be too standoffish. There are some positive new strategies that we're seeing emerge through the Biden administration, but we just need to kind of amp them up, turn the dial up further, and weave it all together into a real clear vision of how we want to use the good story we have to tell and our comfort and natural affinity for people of faith as a way to bring countries closer to us.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, you noted in your piece some of the initiatives around the Joint Chiefs of Staff using military chaplains as part of that connective tissue between institutions of faith to government, to business, to community, to NGOs. And to me, it's that convening and that interconnective tissue that if we see that as a strength, and we see faith playing an important role and people being able to bring their whole authentic self into the public square for those conversations, that really can be game-changing, transformational for communities as well as countries.
Absolutely. Yes. In fact, that chaplain whose video link I included in the piece, I was emailing with him today, and he was telling me even more about his work on a certain Pacific Island nation, working with pastors and churches, and how he heard from them, how they're wary of Chinese involvement through the BRI, but their leaders are corrupt and they're getting payback. But it demonstrated this faith engagement, because of we're spiritual beings, because of the commonality of having something beyond ourselves that gives our lives purpose and meaning. You can have partnerships in ways that are impossible for the Chinese to compete with. That are lasting, that are durable, and build deep ties of affinity that are going to be incredibly valuable and just good as well.
Fantastic perspective. It's a great piece. Check it out at The Dispatch, thedispatch.com, and then also be watching September 1st. The book is Ending Persecution, Charting the Path to Global Religious Freedom. And I just love this idea of valuing those differences, bringing that to the table. It may be the most powerful form of diplomacy that we can have and can actually transform not just communities and country, but our international interconnectedness as well. Knox Thames, of course, served as special envoy role at the State Department during the Obama and the Trump administration, and just focusing on some crucial conversations, and one that we're often missing underneath the headlines. Knox, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
We'll step aside for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look at some of the areas around social media. The impact on our young people is back in the news. We'll break that down coming up next. We'll be right back.
Don't let this happen to you.
The place not to be is I-15.
Too late for that. I am stuck in this mess now.
Before you hit the road, check the road.
Ricky, it's been kind of a nightmare this afternoon.
It's been awful. Stop and go.
Okay, yeah. I'll just pull off and get a hotel for the night.
Own the road, or it will own you. Grasshopper. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nines, every morning and afternoon on KSL News Radio.
SOTA weight loss is state-of-the-art. State-of-the-art weight loss. It's swift, it's safe, and most important, it's sustainable. With a fad diet or diet drugs, you have to ask those crucial questions about, is it safe, and what happens when I stop taking the drugs? Sadly, most people gain the weight back and plus a little bit more. So SOTA is real, it's lasting, it's a natural solution based on science. You'll get rid of that belly fat, no drugs, no side effects, and real results. I lost 37 pounds in 90 days, and I've sustained it for over 2.5 years. That's real. That's sustainable success. So if you want swift, safe, sustainable results, go to sotaweightloss.com right now. Click the Request a Nutritionist callback, and within minutes, you'll be on the line with someone who can help you get where you want to go. As I always say, when it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, there's no time to lose, only time to win. So start winning today. Swift, safe, sustainable results with state-of-the-art weight loss. SOTAweightloss.com.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
Gotta change my oil.
How about Valvoline Restore and Protect? It restores and protects your engine to run like new.
Get in zone.
It restores your engine to like factory clean?
And protects.
Get in zone.
So Valvoline Restore and Protect restores and protects.
Now you can get 5 quarts with an STP extended life oil filter for $37.99.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit ConsumerCellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by September 2nd, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best, just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment in product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Israel has attacked targets in Beirut, apparently in retaliation for a missile attack that killed 12 children in the Golan Heights last weekend. Second, a judge has rejected the latest attempt by Tabor and Honey's attorneys to delay his execution next week. Third, Taylor Swift is expressing her sympathy after an attack on a children's dance class in England that featured her music. 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Of course, the headlines have been centered around the Jordan School District being named as one of the main plaintiffs in a lawsuit that pits school districts across the country against the largest social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat. And as we watch all of that play out, of course, the schools are grappling with increased demand for mental health services. The legal action underscores just how urgent the need is to address some of the potential harm caused by excessive social media among our young people. It also is a pretty bold step towards holding the tech giants accountable for their influence, what they know and what they're doing that impacts mental health, especially of young people. And we want to take this opportunity to make sure we're stepping back and looking at the principles around all of this and the things that we all can do to change the game, to change the conversation, to get to the crucial part of the conversation. And as always, we turn to our good friend Jenny Howe, owner of Jenny Howe Consulting. She works with children and families to treat a variety of mental health issues. And Jenny, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Boyd. It's so great to be here.
So give us a little update. As you've been working with your patients and the families that you interact with, what are you seeing as things continue to move forward, especially as we play out the summer? It seems like all parents are highly motivated to keep the kids highly busy and off their devices in June, and then July comes, and then we hit the early days of August, and it seems like we're back to square one.
Right. And I think real life hits us a little bit, and we recognize that we don't have as much control as we'd like to think we do with our kids and their time, and we all need a little break. So, yes, I hear you. You know, social media is such an interesting and I think divisive topic among mental health practitioners. And I really, in my own kind of evolvement as a practitioner, have come to, I think, like a much grayer area in regards to how I see social media influencing my patients and clients. I see it as individualized. Imagine that. I see a lot of my clients that practice like some amazing skills of moderation that will come into session and say, hey, like I noticed I spent 4 hours on TikTok yesterday and I didn't like the way that felt and I've removed it from my phone. They just have the initiative, the ability to be able to kind of do that. And I have some clients who really, really struggle with moderation and compulsivity and the ability to moderate that. So I see social media and its influences really impacting people differently based off of their wiring and the family's needs and the systems in place and all those complicated factors.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. One, the moderation component, I think, is the important thing for everyone. And if we can be focused on, I mean, we have a problem with that as adults, whether that's with dessert or social media or something else. Moderation is always the test and the challenge because it's easy to go like cold turkey for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. But then we kind of creep back in, then we have that big splurge and we're back at it. So talk to us for a minute about how do we develop that I think there's two parts. You alluded to the awareness factor of that leads to moderation. How do we encourage that and have those conversations, especially with our kids?
I think the first thing is really teaching the principle of accountability, the accountability to self. You know, if I have a client come into session and is like, social media is doing this, or TikTok just took me away from my family yesterday, the first thing I'm going to question or ask as a point of curiosity and response is, well, did TikTok take you away, or did you choose to stay on TikTok for 4 hours? And that stopgap, right, that little tiny, sometimes minuscule positioning of choice, right, is such an imperative component of our ability to kind of, move forward and grow in any area, right, whether it's desserts or social media. But recognizing that we are accountable regardless of how negative something is influencing our life is huge.
That's such an important skill, and it comes with the absolute predictability of consequences. And I've been doing this with my grandsons and just talking about, okay, if you keep teasing your little sister, what is the absolute predictable consequence? You're going to lose your screen time or be sent to your room. So I think that's an important part of that. And I love this whole idea of, I think our young people today are far better equipped to deal with this than we think they are. And when we try to do command and control, there's always going to be the rub and the resistance. But if you teach them about choice and the natural and absolute predictability of consequences, that changes the dynamics of all of those conversations.
Right. It moves that power shift, right, from externalization to internalization, where the world isn't out to get us. Like, we have the components in our DNA as human beings to actually conquer the world. We get to choose how we look at that perspective. And so when we shift, right, the marker from like, hey, these things are bad for you, to, hey, if this feels bad in your body, what can you do about it? It really changes the way that our kids and myself, ourselves, feel like we could actually do something different in our lives. You know, we can't really create change if we believe that the world is doing something to us. We can only create change when we, feel some empowerment to do something about it ourselves.
And doesn't that lead to all kinds of other great conversations about not being, we're not a victim. You know, we have this phone in our pocket and it doesn't jump out on its own. It doesn't turn on its own, despite what AI may be able to do these days.
Right.
But lead us through how we can help our young people start to broaden that out and say, look, your choices here play out this way, and there's no space for you to just be in grievance or victimhood, because you are in charge and you do have the ability to make those choices.
Yeah, I really like the power of "and" in that conversation. Often we feel like something is really hard or negative for us, social media, right? Like, just like you said, I'm as subject to like being on TikTok on a Saturday night when I'm home alone for a couple of hours as anybody else, because it's entertaining. It keeps me moving. It distracts me from the things that I'm doing, right? We all have the desire to escape and to engage in things that, take us away from whatever's feeling bad in our body at the time. And so to teach the people that we love, our kids, our families, that it's okay to feel like you want to escape, and there are options for doing this in a way that feels moderated, or there are ways that you can kind of attach that to your values. Like, I personally, just as an example, I'm okay if I spend a couple of hours on TikTok on a Saturday night when I'm home alone, but I don't want to be spending a couple of hours on TikTok when my kids are home and we're having a family dinner. So I think it's about trying to develop compassion for ourselves and allowing that escape, while also, practicing our values.
Love it. Nobody better. Jenny Howe, owner of Jenny Howe Consulting. Great perspective as always. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we'll step aside for some top of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. Judge Thomas Griffith's going to join us talking about what President Biden is doing on the Supreme Court, coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. Once again, a Utah court has rejected attempts by Tabor and Honey's attorneys to delay his execution planned for next week. They argued the drugs the state planned to use for lethal injection amount to cruel and unusual punishment. The state says it'll be using a drug combination that's already been used in other states. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Israeli military says its attack in Beirut today targeted the militant commander allegedly behind a rocket strike that killed 12 children on a soccer field in the Golan Heights. ABC's Marcus Moore in Beirut says there's worry now the conflict will spread.
Hezbollah has said that any strike on the Dahia district or the airport here in Beirut or any other critical infrastructure in the Beirut area and in Lebanon will be met with a strong response. And that is why there is so much concern that this situation could spill even further out of control and turn into a much wider regional war.
Hezbollah has denied that it fired the rocket that hit the soccer field. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up to 203 points on the day so far, but the NASDAQ is down 222 points. Our KSL weather, it's going to warm up by the time we get to the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time 201.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
When you're getting a new roof installed, you don't want to wonder, when are they going to be done? Or even worse, what are they doing up there? You'll never have to ask when you hire IWC Roofing, because their team of certified installers will be texting you pictures from the roof. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what you're getting for your money. And on most homes, they'll do the entire job in one day. In, out, cleaned up, and they'll even power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now, you think you'd pay a premium for this level of service, but IWC does so many roofs. They get the material for less, and they pass the savings on to you. IWC is an Owens Corning certified platinum contractor. Of course, financing is available. Even better, their summer special, up to $2,000 off your quote. But you have to make the call. $2,000 off right now. Call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690. Or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
100, 200, 300.
What you're hearing is a special offer being prepared just for you.
800, 900, 1000.
And it's from Brighton Bank. So let me explain. For a limited time, Brighton Bank's Cash Reward Extravaganza is offering up to $2,000 in cash rewards on qualifying deposits. So make a qualifying deposit at Brighton Bank and receive a cash reward. Build your financial future and receive up to $2,000 in cash rewards with a qualifying deposit at Brighton Bank. Reach your financial goals quicker with Brighton Bank. Well, you get the idea. With the Cash Reward Extravaganza, Brighton Bank continues a tradition of developing relationships and building communities for over 45 years.
1,800, 1,900, 2,000.
What kind of Cash Reward Extravaganza will you qualify for? Learn more online at BrightonBank.com. BrightonBank.com. Brighton Bank is FDIC insured. Some terms and conditions may apply. Program ends July 31st. Get details from your Brighton Bank professional.
Life can feel hard or overwhelming sometimes, but you don't have to face things alone. Getting help for yourself or someone you're worried about starts with a call or text to 988, where you always have someone to talk to, someone to help you, and somewhere safe to go. 988 Utah is here for anyone experiencing mental health challenges or emotional distress, and can even help you navigate how to support your struggling loved ones. Whether you're struggling with anxiety, depression, or suicidal thoughts, trained professionals are ready to listen and provide free, confidential support 24/7. Utah, don't hesitate to call or text 988 for you or someone you care about. The caring staff at 988 Utah can connect you to the right resources. Learn more at 988lifeline.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon Here's Ricky Meese.
Good speeds on all of your Valley freeways, but we do have a crash in Tooele County. It's northbound on Main Street SR 36 at Erda. It's already been moved out of traffic to the shoulder. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
More wildfire smoke moves in today. That affects our air quality, and then highs will be back in the mid-90s today and tomorrow, and then we'll get back into the triple digits for the weekend. Right now, 91 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The headline yesterday, of course, was an op-ed penned by the President of the United States, Joe Biden, announcing some bold steps he was proposing, including reforms to the Supreme Court. We want to go underneath the headlines, look at what it is, what it isn't, and why it matters. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We are thrilled to have back on the program with us today Judge Thomas Griffith, of course, who served as a U.S. Circuit Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. And Judge Griffith, welcome back to the show. And obviously this has been a big headline grabber from the president. There's a lot underneath there in terms of what's real, what's politics. And you've had a unique seat to this, being part of a group that really took a hard look at the court and made a host of different recommendations. Give us a sense of your take in terms of what the president proposed and what we actually should be talking about when it comes to the Supreme Court.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Boyd. Yeah, I was a member of President Biden's commission on the Supreme Court, which he convened shortly after he took office. And for a year, 30 plus some of us met together, and he asked us to describe for him the debates surrounding various proposals for change on the Supreme Court. We actually were not had no authority to give him recommendations, so we didn't. But we described the nature of the debates for various changes that certain people wanted made. And so, yeah, I was able to spend a year looking at this, and I think there's a direct line between that report that we gave to the president and his op-ed that he wrote yesterday suggesting some changes. I'm reluctant to call them reforms because at least the word reform to me means that there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and I'm just not persuaded that there are problems here. And I'm distrustful of any recommendations that change the nature, the way the judiciary does its business, that when those recommendations are rooted and grounded in partisan politics, which these certainly are. These are clearly, and the president said so himself in his op-ed, they come out of dissatisfaction with the decision rendered by the Supreme Court. And I worry about structural changes that are made to the judiciary in response to decisions that are made that people are dissatisfied with. I think that's a real threat to the independence of the judiciary, which is a critical component in our constitutional structure, and it's a fragile protection that we have. So I worry about that.
Yeah, no question. I want to unpack some of that because I agree. I think it's so interesting. Some of these really have been more a political solution in search of a problem. And a lot of it has to do with what you described, Judge Griffith, in terms of this idea that just because we don't like the result of a certain ruling or series of rulings, that suddenly we want to change the structure of the institution. And that's dangerous because that leads us to some pretty bad places. I think Venezuela is probably a pretty good example of what they did with their court and how that changed, really the trajectory of the country in many ways. But give us a sense as you kind of unpack that, why these kinds of changes, whether it's the things kind of at the upper end, the first two items in terms of the restraint in terms of term limiting people out. That's clearly a political piece that's going to have to play out. And then the last one, which, of course, was the ruling regarding presidential immunity, which was clearly just a disagreement with an outcome. Kind of walk us through those pieces.
Yeah, let's talk about the term limits. Now, if you and I were sitting in Independence Hall in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787, and we're creating the Constitution and creating the Supreme Court, there might be a pretty good argument that there ought to be an age limit on service in the judiciary, or maybe even a term limit. So I'm not necessarily opposed to those ideas, but that's not what's going on here. This isn't a good government move. This is dissatisfaction with the Roberts Court. Now, I'm generally a supporter, a defender of the Roberts Court, but they overturned me several times. I don't agree with everything they did, but I never thought for a moment that because they disagreed with me on the law that they were somehow illegitimate. And this is the word that bothers me the most. And I heard this a lot when I was on President Biden's commission on the Supreme Court. A lot of my fellow commissioners who were dissatisfied with the Roberts Court described their dissatisfaction in terms of they thought the court was illegitimate, that it was acting unlawfully. When I just don't agree with that at all. These are tough issues. They're wrestling with legal issues, and they may come out with outcomes that you disagree with their reading of the law. But I tell you what's not happening there. I was on the D.C. Circuit for 15 years. Never once in those 15 years did I see one of my colleagues cast a vote that I thought was in any way tainted by their partisan priors. They weren't voting this way on a matter because they wanted to stick it to Obama or they wanted to advance the cause of President Trump. Judges just do not think that way. And Justice Stephen Breyer, who served on the Supreme Court for 25 years or so,
right,
and wrote a lot of dissents. He says the same thing about his service on the Supreme Court. Yeah. He said it's not partisan politics. You're wrestling with difficult legal issues. You have different approaches to how to read a statute or how to read the Constitution, but it's not judges trying to advance the aims of a political party or the policies. And the problem with these sorts of proposals is they assume that that's what's going on.
Right.
They assume that politics is being played. Justice Breyer has a great phrase for it. He says judges are not partisans in robes. And that's been my experience. Yeah. I didn't see that. I didn't see that happening. So that's what I'm referring to when I say I worry about suggestions for change, proposals for change that are rooted and grounded in the idea that judges are partisans in robes and that we can get them to be for us,
right,
along our lines. I think that's a really, really dangerous attitude.
Yeah, and when we throw around words like illegitimate, I think that is such a problematic component to fall into because you undermine the trust in the institution. And I keep coming back to this idea that we've stress tested this country in world wars and pandemics and economic collapse. We've never stress tested it in the absence of trust. And whether that's in the institutions or in the leaders, but mostly it's trickling down now. It's fraying the fabric of society, our trust in each other.
Well said. Well said. Earlier today, I was being interviewed by another media outlet who asked me the question, something along these lines. I said, well, the American public, the approval rating of the Supreme Court among the American public is lower than it's ever been. How do you explain that? And my response is, well, I understand that because every time you turn on cable, every time you go to social media, every time you pick up a newspaper, you'll hear pundits and commentators claiming that the court is illegitimate. Illegitimate. Right. You hear that enough, and it starts to affect your attitude. And I just reject it. I think the judiciary is not perfect. It can be better. The Supreme Court can be better. I could be better as a judge. By no means perfect. But I tell you what, it's, in my view, it's the crown jewel of our constitutional democracy, and we ought to be really, really careful when making proposals for change. I teach at a couple of law schools now, and I have a rule for all of my students. I will not allow them to criticize the decision of the Supreme Court until they promise me that they have read that decision at least twice. And here's the reason. Here's the reason for it. It's fair game to criticize decisions of the Supreme Court. This is America. We need to disagree.
Yeah.
But if you read their opinions carefully, you will see that these are people, good people, struggling with tough legal issues. They are not on a political mission to advance their side's policies.
Yeah.
That's just not what's happening. Now you read the opinions and you'll see that. Now here's the problem. They write really long opinions. Right?
You got to be committed.
Most of us don't have time to do that. But if you do, because I want my students, it's fair in my classroom for them to criticize Justice Alito's opinion in the Dobbs case overturning Roe v. Wade. That's fair game.
Sure.
Let them do that. But I want them to read the opinion carefully, because if they do, their criticism will not be, oh, this is a man acting in bad faith.
Right.
No, this is not. And the same thing for my conservative students. If they want to criticize Justice Kennedy's opinion in Obergefell, the opinion allowing states to recognize same-sex marriage, same thing. This is a tough legal issue, but Anthony Kennedy was not out to destroy the traditional family.
Right.
He's dealing with a tough legal issue.
Yeah, so important. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. That is inside the inside of it all. An important perspective for all of us in terms of what is going on. They're co-equal branches of government for a reason, and keeping that way is essential and requires all of us to lean in and engage. Judge Griffith, as always, thanks for that fantastic insight and perspective. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks, Boyd.
All right, again, that's Judge Thomas Griffith, and that is extraordinary insight. Again, he was part of the commission that was set up by President Biden to look at the judiciary of this country and to go through and look at all the angles. And I love the way he's framed that. Regardless of where you fall politically, that's not the issue. If you look at how they actually go through the process, that's what really matters. And that's what we have to maintain our trust and our confidence in as we try to keep that balance of power between the three branches all together in the republic moving forward. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. It could be almost anyone.
Harris will have to choose a running mate, and she will have to do it fast.
Who does Kamala Harris choose to round out the Democratic ticket? This fall, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance will take on Harris and, well, we'll find out. Listen to KSL for the shortlist and speculation. Your voice, your vote 2024 on KSL News Radio.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this. 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. You know, for some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
Gotta change my oil.
How about Valvoline Restore and Protect? It restores and protects your engine to run like new.
Get in zone.
It restores your engine to like factory clean?
And protects.
Get in zone.
So Valvoline Restore and Protect restores and protects.
Now you can get 5 quarts with an STP extended life oil filter for $37.99.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Every business faces challenges, but complicated, expensive, and uncertain shipping shouldn't be one of them.
With USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service, you can avoid all the noise.
No more unexpected surcharges, hidden fees, or complex rate structures.
It's just easy, cost-effective, and dependable shipping. Tune your business's frequency to success and turn shipping to your advantage. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
At Common Spirit Health, we know that lifelong health and well-being starts with primary care. So we have doctors and providers who see you, hear you, know you, and understand you. Because understanding you means understanding your needs. And that leads to a deeper knowledge of the prevention, wellness, and treatment options that may be best for you. It's primary care that treats your whole family like family. It's primary care with human kindness. Discover all the ways you can find and connect with a primary care provider at mountain.commonspirit.org.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a judge has rejected arguments about the drugs the state plans to use for Tabor Unhoney's execution, still set for next week. Second, Israel has attacked targets in Beirut, apparently targeting a military commander they think was behind a rocket attack that killed 12 children. And third, social media companies have now targeted the state of Utah with their own lawsuit. 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Real interesting question to look at today, and that is, how is private equity investments impacting the quality of health care in our hospitals? I know you didn't wake up thinking about that this morning, but it does have an impact on you and your world. It's a complicated question. The FTC is asking, of course, bringing private equity practices into the healthcare sector obviously comes under great scrutiny there. And so for officials, journalists, everyone who's digging into the question, it is a messy web to untangle. Someone who's been in the middle of that web trying to untangle and get down to the essence of what it is and what it means, the impact that it has. Peter Wiersky is the investigative reporter at the Washington Post, has a great piece at the Post today talking about this very issue of when private equity buys a hospital, what happens? And Peter, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So give us the breakdown here. And again, a lot of people maybe not be tuned into this particular one. I think it's so fascinating and the impact is so significant. So describe for us what is happening, you know, what these private equity buys are, and then what the results are proving out to be.
Right. As you mentioned at the top, it is a complicated issue, but it's an important one because over the last 15 years or so, we've begun to see private equity firms move into the healthcare field, and they currently own about 450 hospitals across the United States. And while you might not ordinarily think about who owns a hospital that you're sitting in, it does make a big difference. Private equity firms, which is something a lot of people aren't so familiar with, what they do is they basically pool money from wealthy investors, from pension funds, from and other big sources of money. They buy then they buy companies and they sell them within usually about 10 years. So they're looking for a rather quick return on the investment. They're not there for the long term. And what that means in healthcare, according to the critics, is that they're coming in, they buy a hospital, they, in some cases, sell off the assets, and then they get rid of the company. And caught in the middle, while they're profiting, are the patients, and sometimes often the doctors.
Yeah. And so break that down for us a little bit. One of the things you pointed out in your piece is this study that looked at over 156 purchases over the last decade. And what tends to happen, we actually saw this a lot in the print media space, where you'd have these equity firms buying newspapers, magazines. They'd sell off a lot of the assets and then, either close it down or sell it off. Describe how that has been working, or what this study proved out in terms of what is happening.
Right. So what the private equity firms, in their own defense, have said all along is that, look, we have a lot of money. We'll come in and we'll invest and make patient care better. So what these researchers did was to test what was actually happening, and they found that, in fact, the capital assets of the companies, that the hospitals that they were buying, were actually decreasing. In other words, the amount of land and equipment that hospitals had decreased rather than increased after a private equity entity bought them. So it's a complete opposite of what the industry had been saying.
Yeah, and so play that out for us a little bit in terms of some of these hospitals that you looked at and described in your piece at the Post, in terms of kind of the net impact in terms of that care of patients as a result of this, trim down of assets and equity.
There's measuring patient quality is difficult, but there's definitely some examinations of the issue that have come out and said, look, with mortality rates and other standard measures of quality have decreased after private equity acquisition. And one of the reasons for that, and I wanted just to go back to that point about, private equity firms going and buying a hospital and what that often means in practice. What it means in practice quite a bit is that they'll sell the land or the building, and then they keep the hospital open, but the hospital then has to pay rent to the new owner. So the operating budgets get squeezed, and we've seen that in some of the really, really big hospital bankruptcies recently with Steward. We also saw it in a similar nursing home, one of the largest nursing home chains. They did the same thing there. They came in and sold the land and buildings where the nursing homes were, and then the nursing homes had to pay rent. So what that does, obviously, is put a crimp in the operating budgets, meaning there's less money to spend for patient care.
Yeah. And then finally, real quickly, give us a sense in terms of what the Federal Trade Commission is looking at in terms of navigating this and some of these practices, kind of the strip and flip tactics, I think, as they're often described. Give us a sense of what you're watching for, what you expect the FTC to do moving forward.
Well, it's really interesting because, they announced this investigation. They're calling it an inquiry because it sounds slightly less scary. But they're looking at, all these issues that we just talked about, was patient quality, what happens when a private equity firm gets involved, what kind of sort of financial machinations happen in this time. But to me, what's kind of interesting about this, wasn't just the FTC, it was the Department of Justice, as well as Health and Human Services. They're all three branches, or all three departments rather, are interested in this issue. So this is not a little inquiry. It seems to me that this is kind of a full look at this really difficult issue.
Yeah, great piece. Again, you can check that out at the Washington Post today. Peter Wiersky, investigative reporter for the Post, and this is an important one. It impacts us. You don't think about it a whole lot, but there are real impacts right down to the patient care level. Peter, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for paying attention.
All right, that's Peter Wiersky, investigative reporter at the Washington Post. We'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour: a judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed by the attorneys for Taberon Honey in regard to the drugs that will be used in his execution next week. The judge ruled Honey's attorneys were not able to show those drugs amount to cruel or unusual punishment because the same drugs are used by other states. Honey is scheduled to be put to death on August 8th. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Israeli military says it's hit Lebanon's capital, Beirut, targeting the militant commander, allegedly behind a rocket strike that killed 12 children on a soccer field. ABC's Marcus Moore in Beirut says that strike could have been even worse.
The airport has not been hit, and that is something that people have been particularly worried about for quite some time, because they believe that would, without a doubt, not only hurt Hezbollah, but also hurt the entire country here and all of Beirut.
Israel was apparently targeting a militia commander that they believe was responsible for the missile attack. Your money at this moment: the Dow Jones average closing trading today up 203 points, while the NASDAQ was down 222. And our KSL weather. We've still got the smoke hanging around from wildfires. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and Hale Center Theater as the movie show broadcasts live at the theater beginning at 10 a.m., 9900 South Monroe Street in Sandy. Save money on season tickets. 2025 season tickets to Hale Center Theater go on sale to the general public Wednesday, August 1st. The 2025 season includes Little Women, the Broadway musical, DreamWorks, The Prince of Egypt, Finding Neverland, 12 Angry Men, Footloose, the musical comedy Murders of 1940, Sister Act, and one musical to be announced August 1st. Not included in the season ticket will be a special engagement by Gentry, the Gentleman's Trio, and Hale Center Theater's 40th production of A Christmas Carol. You can reserve your 2025 season tickets by going to hct.org or call 801-984-9000.
Dan owed an unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
I got behind on my taxes. It's a horrible feeling.
He was in denial.
And when I got those letters from the IRS, you wanted to act like they didn't exist.
Finally, Dan turned to Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima got me a settlement with the IRS. These people are really people-friendly. It was every bit of a new lease on life for me.
The fast action and the great results made Dan's head spin.
I felt like I was in a dream, but it's real, and I have paperwork to prove it. They got the job done, and life is good.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation.
If you're worried about what's going to happen with the IRS, stop worrying. Make the call now.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Some of the hardest and best things I've ever done, I've been motivated to do by my kids.
My daughter, she's 2. My wife, Meriden, we did it together because we want to be around a long time for her. We care a lot that she sees us be healthy. She already loves the food that we're eating. She's going to have a better life for it.
I agree with Tyler. He did soda weight loss. So did I. And I did it in part because I want to be around to take care of my kids and see them grow. And I want them to develop better, healthier relationships with food than I did at their age. And so I could teach them because of that nutritionist.
Look, this is not a diet. We've told you that a lot, but there's so many people that are looking at, fad diets right now. And we can tell you with soda, no injections, no pills, no hunger, and the difference maker is that relationship with a nutritionist. Right now, matter of fact, go to sodaweightloss.com, click on the Request a Nutritionist callback. They want to make sure you keep that weight off. It's sodaweightloss.com, spelled S-O-T-A, and it stands for State of the Art.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Valley Freeway traffic in pretty good shape. Now, we have this stalled vehicle. Crews are blocking the left lane of the on-ramp to eastbound I-80 at 1300 East. And then we also have delays once again, and it's a little bit in both directions of Highway 6, Spanish Fork Canyon. This is near the windmills, and just remember, it's probably due to construction. Expect some backups. Attention pet parents tired of being a doorman for your furry friends? Say hello to Utah's own Pet Door Products, your ticket to convenience and freedom. Visit petdoorproducts.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see more wildfire smoke, and that will affect our air quality, and the highs will be in the mid-90s today and tomorrow. Then it gets back into the triple digits for the weekend. Right now, 93 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as China has continued to ratchet up its influence in the Indo-Pacific region, the United States and Japan have taken a historic step to strengthen the military alliance, announcing some new command structure today. It's a landmark message underscoring the growing importance of the U.S. and Japan partnership. So we want to get underneath the hood of that just a little bit. Brad Dress joins us as defense reporter for The Hill, co-author of The Hill's Defense and National Security newsletter, joins us from Washington, D.C. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for inviting me on. Appreciate it.
So let's dig into this. Obviously, the United States and Japan making a major announcement today. Break it down for us, both in terms of the cause, why it's so important, and then what the agreement actually is.
Yeah, so Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, they were in Japan over the weekend, and they announced a major new agreement. So essentially what's happening is the U.S. is moving more command operations to U.S. forces Japan, and they're going to be working a lot more closely with Japanese forces. This is a joint command structure, is what they're calling it. And Japanese forces will also be working under this new command structure. So this is pretty big. This is the biggest transition for U.S. forces Japan since they were formed in the 1950s. They'll be reporting to a 3-star general, and all this, is aimed at sort of countering the rise of China in the region. This is, something that's important for Japan, but also the U.S. Both of them referred to China as a strategic threat in the region. So, this is a major new announcement that, it's defensive in purpose, but obviously it's aimed at sort of a check on Beijing.
Yeah, and you pointed out in your piece just the kind of the behind the scenes, the hard work and heavy lifting done by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Secretary of State Antony Blinken to get to that agreement. This is an important one, and clearly the dynamics with Japan have been changing as I think that rise of the Chinese threat has been increasing. But give us a sense of kind of the delicate dance there and what it is that Secretary Austin and Secretary of State Blinken have been doing and what they have actually put together.
Yeah, so they had a 2+2 ministerial meeting. Essentially what that means is they met with their counterparts, the Japanese Defense Minister, Japanese Secretary of State. These were very intense negotiations aimed at ensuring that they can sort of get their forces to interoperate more and work more closely. I think that's really important for the U.S. and Japan if they want to make sure that their alliances are strong in Indo-Pacific. The U.S. has some 54,000 troops in Japan. They host hundreds of aircraft there, a naval carrier strike group. It's an important area and region and country for the U.S. And I think this announcement underscores how much more vital and important that Japan's going to be in the future. Obviously this is it's not just Japan. Blinken and Austin are on a trip across the Indo-Pacific this week. Today, actually, they were in the Philippines and they announced a major new agreement there, $500 million to support modernizing the Filipino forces. Also, a bunch of other announcements like increasing exercises and other sort of investments with the Philippines. So all this goes together, and it's part of the U.S. trying to shore up support in the Indo-Pacific to make sure that, they are deterring China, which is, their main goal in the Indo-Pacific. And even as they're sort of being caught up in all these other geopolitical crises in the Middle East and Europe, I think what these announcements are showing is that the U.S. is still very much focused on the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. The administration has been focusing heavily on this, and clearly, I think the deepening ties with Russia, North Korea, and China, including the airplanes flying together off of U.S. airspace, about 200 miles off of U.S. airspace last week, showing the deepening ties there with Russia and China. You mentioned the Philippines, also Australia. Give us some other elements in terms of what's happening in the region that we should be keeping our eye on.
Yes, so actually that's really important. So the big threat here is China and Taiwan. China is threatening to unify with Taiwan by force if necessary. China's President Xi has told his military to be ready by 2027. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but that's certainly a date that the U.S. is keeping an eye on. China's also clashing with the Philippines over disputed waters in the South China Sea. And then, as you mentioned, Russia's cooperation with North Korea is also another significant threat. Recently, Putin actually visited North Korea earlier this year, and the countries are sharing weapons and technology. I mean, North Korea's giving much-needed artillery shells for Russia to use in Ukraine, and Russia's providing technology for North Korea so they can use in their ballistic missile launches and stuff, or their spy satellite launches. So we're seeing a lot of growing cooperation among these countries. China has also been accused. NATO, which held its big summit in Washington earlier this month, accused China of being a decisive enabler for the first time, giving Russia non-lethal technology that they're using in the war in Ukraine. So, this alliance, Russia, North Korea, even Iran and China, it's a big concern for the U.S., and they're trying to counter it in, not just in Europe and the Middle East, but also in the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah, and then finally, Brad, before I let you go, give us a little bit of a sense, the message that these kinds of agreements send. I think there's always two components to this. One, there's the important message that we're sending to our allies in the region that we are here, we are committed, we are investing, and then also the messages that we send to our adversaries in the region, like China, North Korea, and Russia, Iran, you mentioned as well. Just describe for us the essence of those messages and why both of those are so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think primarily it's posture, and the U.S. is trying to signal that it has strength, that it's not alone, it's standing with allies in the region. I think it's about deterrence. I mean, China now has the largest navy, the largest army. They have a lot of mass that the U.S. is worried about. So one thing the U.S. can do is shore up its alliances and make sure that it can project strength and posture that way. The U.S. insists that this is defensive in nature, that these are defensive alliances. I think China sees it another way. They see it as aggressive, and I'm certain that they're going to come out, if they haven't already, accusing the U.S. of sort of making things worse and of hostile actions. And they always put out pretty aggressive statements when the U.S. announces these. But the U.S. they insist that these are defensive alliances. But at the end of the day, it will send a message to China that the U.S. is standing with its allies and it's not going anywhere, particularly as we're seeing these threats against Taiwan and the Philippines.
Yeah, great perspective, great insight. Brad Dress, defense reporter for The Hill. He's a co-author of The Hill's Defense and National Security newsletter. Great piece. You can check that out at thehill.com today. Brad, thanks for your perspective. Great stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's Brad Dress, and that is such a crucial region and an important alliance there. Again, strengthening deterrence is really the posturing there, and so vital as we look at a very volatile region of the world that impacts all of us. All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for one last break. We'll come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Couple of quick questions. How long have you been dealing with arthritis pain? And how much have you been giving up in your life because of it? Have you tried steroids or even surgery only to find that you have different pain on the other side of it? Look, it's time for you to try something different. There are exciting new cellular therapies out there that can give you some lasting relief, and QC Kinetics is now helping patients like you every day with advanced regenerative medicine that accelerates your own body's healing properties and revitalizes your joints so that you can move again and do the things that you enjoy doing with your family. QC Kinetics medical professionals have arrived in Mill Creek, Provo, and Bountiful, and they are ready to help deliver that relief and get you your life back. The future of medicine is now. Call this number. See if they can help you with a free consultation. 385-766-1987. Call QC Kinetics, 385-766-1987. It's 385-766-1987.
Hi, this is Cameron Rising. Growing up, summer break was the best, but I've learned that a lot of kids don't feel the same. That's because summer means their school breakfast and lunch won't be available. What's awesome is the food bank helps. Join me and Les Olson IT by giving food, time, or money. Take your donations to any Les Olson IT branch or the food bank, and find more info at lesolson.com/food. Let's support our community together.
You don't have to live with cataracts. The Moran Eye Center can help you return to crisp, clear vision. Recently ranked among the nation's top 10 eye centers by U.S. News & World Report, Moran's highly trained cataract surgeons give you state-of-the-art personalized care. If you're looking for a cataract doctor near you, the Moran Eye Center has the top experts in the field right here in Utah. Visit moraneyecenter.com and schedule a consultation today.
Prices are slashed.
Hot deals at Dave's Bernina.
At their St. George and Provo locations.
Offers so good and they won't last long. Hot summer savings on the Bernina 790 Pro, Bernina 570QE, 570E, and 770QE with free embroidery software and more extras valued over $4,000 with purchase.
All machines are discounted.
Featuring 1.9% interest for 48 months on certain machines.
All new Berninas come with a 5-year warranty and free classes.
The Bernina L Series Sergers are specially priced that include free Serger packages valued over $1,000.
Hurry in for amazing bargains on previously loved machines. Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
And did you know that magic is coming? The top-of-the-line, all-new Bernina 990. Come in for exciting special pre-order offers.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Life can feel hard or overwhelming sometimes, but you don't have to face things alone. Getting help for yourself or someone you're worried about starts with a call or text to 988, where you always have someone to talk to, someone to help you, and somewhere safe to go. 988 Utah is here for anyone experiencing mental health challenges or emotional distress and can even help you navigate how to support your struggling loved ones. Whether you're struggling with anxiety, depression, or suicidal thoughts, trained professionals are ready to listen and provide free, confidential support 24/7. Utah, don't hesitate to call or text 988 for you or someone you care about. The caring staff at 988 Utah can connect you to the right resources. Learn more at 988lifeline.org.
100, 200, 300.
What you're hearing is a special offer being prepared just for you.
800, 900, 1000.
And it's from Brighton Bank. So let me explain. For a limited time, Brighton Bank's Cash Reward Extravaganza is offering up to $2,000 in cash rewards on qualifying deposits. So make a qualifying deposit at Brighton Bank and receive a cash reward. Build your financial future and receive up to $2,000 in cash rewards with a qualifying deposit at Brighton Bank. Reach your financial goals quicker with Brighton Bank. Well, you get the idea. With the Cash Reward Extravaganza, Brighton Bank continues a tradition of developing relationships and building communities for over 45 years.
1,800, 1,900, 2,000.
What kind of Cash Reward Extravaganza will you qualify for? Learn more online at brightonbank.com. brightonbank.com. Brighton Bank is FDIC insured. Some terms and conditions may apply. Program ends July 31st. Get details from your Brighton Bank professional.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a judge has refused to delay the execution of Tabor Honey over concerns that the drugs used for lethal injection are an untried combination. The state says it'll use a standard combination that has been used in other states. Second, Israel hit targets in Beirut today, retaliating for a missile attack that killed 12 children. Third, mosquitoes infected with West Nile virus have turned up in Riverton and Draper. 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, I want to go to an interesting compare and contrast. Now, I want you to set your politics on the shelf, but we're going to compare and contrast two very prominent political leaders and some principles underneath them. If you take the current presumptive nominee for the Democrats, of course, Vice President Kamala Harris, and if you take the current vice presidential nominee for the Republicans, J.D. Vance, you would say they are worlds apart, worlds away, nothing in common. They actually have a lot in common, more than you would think. And what is in common is the way both of them are criticized. And what both of them continue to be pummeled with is that they have flip-flopped, that they have been chameleons politically, that they have changed over and over and over based on who they were talking to or what election they were trying to win. And both of them have been hit by the opposition with that as a criticism. So it's very interesting to look at both of them and say, okay, well, J.D. Vance, has this story, this narrative. He was clearly very critical of then nominee Donald Trump and then President Trump. And now he's come full circle, and now he's standing side by side and fully on board. And so you can say, wow, that's quite a shift. Chameleon, opportunist. Let's not get into that just yet. With Vice President Harris, many similar things. People say, I'm not sure where she really stands on a lot of things because she was this way in California, and then she was a little different in the Senate, and then she was different when she became the vice presidential nominee and the vice president, and now she's the top of the ticket, the presumptive nominee for the Democrats, and on a wide range of things, from criminal justice to funding the police to a host of other things. She has flipped and flopped and changed and evolved. So here's the principle that I want to get to. So the thing that we often hear from voters is, I want someone who is going to stand on their convictions. Even if I disagree with them, I just want them to stand fast, stand firm, stand with courage. And then we also say, but we also want somebody who is going to really listen, someone who's going to be curious, someone who could actually evolve their position based on, I don't know, facts and evidence. And so that's an interesting conundrum for a lot of folks of when have they evolved because they listened and were curious and were presented new facts versus when were they opportunistic and chameleon-like and just changed with the wind or the political prospects that were in front of them. It's one of the fascinating things. If you ask any member of Congress, actually, if you ask the interns and the staff of any congressional office in the House or in the Senate, Democrat or Republican, you will hear that what they hear the most from constituents who call into the Senate or the House office, you will hear one of two things. You will have someone call in and they will say, you tell the representative, you tell the senator, don't flinch, don't give an inch, don't compromise, don't give way, don't become a squish, stand pat, no change, no matter what. And then the other kind of calls that come into a congressional office say, stay open, work with the other side, compromise anywhere, anytime, in a box, with a fox, just compromise, compromise, compromise. And those are the two things that you're always presented with. And so that always led me to the question is, well, which of those do we really want? Do we want someone who has the courage to stand up and speak out and even stand alone? Or do we want someone who's going to be open-minded and ask good questions and change and evolve their position or their negotiating strategy based on the facts and the information and what they continue to learn? And the answer, of course, is yes. I think we do want people who will have the courage to stand up and to speak out, even if it costs them the next election. Having that kind of political courage has become pretty rare in the country today. And this is an and conversation. And I want someone representing me who is intensely curious, who isn't so stuck, especially in the political framing of things, that they aren't willing to even consider anything from the other point of view. And so sometimes we have to be careful what we wish for, because sometimes we wish for two things at once, and it's awful hard for anybody to deliver on that. And so the question of whether J.D. Vance or whether Vice President Harris have no convictions, that are willing to come out and say anything at any time based on the opportunities of the moment, or whether they've just evolved and learned. And I think both those things can be true, by the way. I think people evolve and change their positions if they're smart, based on facts, based on truth and input and information, and maybe things they had never supposed before. That's a sign of a good leader. A bad leader is someone who just hunkers down in their own position, is unwilling to even listen to another point of view or an alternate set of data and what it might show or what it might project. And so all of that, we have to kind of step back just a little bit, because you're going to continue to hear this for the next 98 days as it relates to the current vice president on the Democratic side, who is now at the top of the ticket, and the current vice presidential nominee on the Republican side. They are both going to be hit, and hit hard, and hit often, especially on social media, especially in political attack ads, that they have no conviction, that they're just chameleons, that they're flip-floppers, that they're constantly changing. And so as you watch those play out, this is your fair warning moment, you're going to see it. You're going to hear a lot of it. And the thing that you should ask yourself when you see those and hear those and read those is to ask, were they being a chameleon? Were they being politically opportunistic? Or were they willing to listen to something different? Or did they evolve or change? Or was there an incident or an experience that changed their point of view? And that's where we have to get. And by the way, we should all do that ourselves. We should be willing to stand up and speak out and even stand alone. And we should be willing to listen and even admit, I might be wrong, or I might have a different point of view. That wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.